Hello, the people. It's me, Redhand. Now, this one's about. This is going to be mostly about racism, racial supremacy, sorts of stuff like that. And my existence as a white person who is not a white supremacist, right? So, because I just saw a thing someone posted. Now there's a very fine line, all right, between what I am saying, all right, and the sort of what should we call it, petulant. So okay, let's take a step back. There is, under every feminist post, like, someone says men, and then you'll have those dudes who are like, ugh, not all men. It's like, well, if it's not you, if it doesn't apply to you, then don't bother responding. But if you respond like that, obviously, you're flagging yourself as one of the people who it does apply to. Now, what I'm about to start saying here is going to be very similar in vein to, it's going to appear similar to that on the very surface, but I'm not saying, I am very much so not saying not all whites. That is not that I was okay. I could have shortened, taken off a whole minute of that, saying like it's similar but different. I'm not saying not all whites. Right there, yeah. It is a very, at its root, what I'm saying is very different from that, but at the beginning it will sound similar. That's what I'm saying. Okay. So this person was saying, at some point you gotta recognize that whiteness and white supremacy is the root of all XYZ problems that are happening right now. Now, I have absolutely no problem admitting white supremacy is the core issue. I am very staunchly anti-white supremacist. I very much understand and study and very vehemently profess white or spout off. What's it called? Declare. It's late. There's a word for it, but white supremacy's role in a lot of the world's problems. Now, something else I do that is very, because I'm not a very nitpicky person, but nuance is something that is incredibly important to me because it is the foundation of truth. There is no, you have facts and then you have truth. All right. Facts are truth. Okay, so there is no truth in the absence of nuance. Truth in the absence of nuance is just facts, and facts can be weaponized. Truth cannot. So, with that being said, it's very similar. Let me give an example to douse the grass and protect myself, honestly, because, for instance, you often have white supremacists who are like talking about how at the conquistadors or whatnot were all super superior to the South American and Central American, Native American civilizations that were around at the time, the Aztecs, the Incas, whatnot. And it's like, okay, sure. That's the fact, yes. Spain was technologically superior to the Native Americans. Again, that is a fact, and it can be weaponized as and often is weaponized as a method by white supremacists to make them validate their idea that they are superior, right? No, it's also. That doesn't matter. Never mind. Actually, that's not. Now, my take on that is like, okay, now let's add nuance, and then we get to the truth. What we get, the nuance, and nuance almost always comes in the form of more facts that are connected to the fact, right? So let's get to some more facts, and that will give us nuance. Context is the facts, and that context and facts equals nuance. Nuance plus facts equals truth. All right, so math. Let's say people settled in Spain. Okay, so people came, I think, this generation except from Ethiopia. That's where human life started, and then they crossed the Sahara, which before it was a swamp. Before it was a desert, it was grassland, it was marsh. But it goes through that cycle of desertification about every 10,000 years. But that's not important for this. It's during one of those 10,000 year gaps, people were able to easily cross it and get to Asia, and then from there spread out into Europe and to Asia, right? Now some of those people settled in. You went all the way across the Mediterranean and settled in Iberia, right? Now, this is like maybe 2,000-3,000 years after first leaving Ethiopia. Now, it takes from there, by the time those people get to Iberia, that only takes about 3,000 years, maybe, max. People are only starting to get to about China, all right? And it's going to take them even longer, let's say another several thousand years, to get to the Bering Strait and then cross the ice bridge into North America. And then several thousand more years to get all the way down to Mexico, where the Aztecs were. Now, in this time, people around the Mediterranean have discovered bronze. By the time people are getting down to Washington, to the Pacific Northwest, mammoths are still around, and the pyramids have been built already. They're gone, or they're done. All right, Greece and civilizations are starting to. Grand civilizations are starting to rise up in Greece and Rome. The people have started settling Germania, and the British Isles. The Celts are starting to pop up, and people haven't. And the Aztecs' ancestors haven't even gotten down to Mexico yet. All right, this is the thing. By the time Spain got to Mexico, they had gunpowder and sails, right? And that reason is because their ancestors were there for 10,000 years, sitting in one spot, building up their stable before the Aztecs' ancestors ever got to Mexico. And what happened once you got to Mexico, by the time the conquistadors came, they were in the Stone Age, a Bronze Age actually even. All right? And so it's not fair to compare them chronistically. You have to compare them anachronistically to other Stone Age civilizations. Obviously, the Spaniards, or in this case, the white people, are going to be superior in many ways. Just because they've had longer. That's it. That's all it boils down to. It doesn't boil down. And white supremacists, they hate this. They hate these facts. Facts don't care about their feelings, right? And that's another thing I'm going to talk about later, is that right-wingers really are really good they suck. I know what it is. But one thing they're really good at is making phrases, is basically self-analyzing, and then making phrases that perfectly encapsulate everything wrong with them, and then trying to use that against us. Again, snowflake. Facts don't care about your feelings. Alternative facts. Just a bunch of Trump derangement syndrome. Again, you'll never meet someone with Trump derangement syndrome who isn't a fan of Trump. They're the only ones who have it. Now, all this to say, whiteness in and of itself is not the cause of any sort of problems. It is the idea among some white people that we are better than everyone else, and that's white supremacy. Now, this seems very nitpicky, but the way this Threads user worded it stands to potentially cause harm and disunity in our movement. Now, by saying whiteness and white supremacy, no, it's white supremacy. Again, now now we get to the reason I gave the example about Native Americans being inferior to Spaniards. The whatchamacallit, Zionism, right? Because this is something that people in our movement very much so are very staunch about, and as I'm very staunch about it too, is that the genocide in Gaza is not being perpetuated by the Jews. There's no the Jews. It's being perpetuated by people who are Jewish. That is an important factor. White supremacy is not being done by the whites. It is being done by people who are white, and enabled by people who see themselves as what we call off-white. Mostly lots of Hispanic people, especially in areas like Argentina. Right. Now, with this again, because the nuance of it is that there's nothing special about white people that made us into conquerors. The thing is, as my friend Liam, he says that, there's nothing special about X or Y historical figure. Somebody else would have come along and done any of the things that any historical figures did. Somebody else would have been Hitler. Somebody else would have been Jesus. That's just the way it is. If it wasn't whites, some other ethnicity would have gone ahead and dominated the world, and then been the problem today. Again, so something about like people. I use this argument against Zionists all the time. They're like, "Oh, from the river to the sea" is really an anti-Semitic slogan. No, it's not. No. So if Chinese people had settled in Israel and were now doing what Israel is doing, it wouldn't be suddenly anti-Chinese to say from the river to the sea. It wouldn't be calling for the genocide of Chinese people. You'd be calling for the removal of your oppressors, regardless of what race they are. Of course, if it happens to be Jewish people who Palestinian kids witness killing their family, I'm sorry, it's kind of your fault that they don't like Jews. It's not. I'm sorry, you don't have a victim card there. And in the same vein, it's another thing is like, again, also say violence in black neighborhoods. That's not a thing that is the blacks. It's just something that happens in black communities sometimes. It's something they are prone to, but it's not because of them being black. there are all sorts of white supremacists love abusing this word. They use it in a mocking way, but it's a very serious and very true thing. Socioeconomic factors going back hundreds of years that led to the conditions, and things even as recent as Project MK Ultra in I don't remember if that was in the 60s or the 80s, but then also just yesterday with the redistricting in all those to gerrymander black communities. Again, that is the thing that causes the conditions that cause black people to pursue or not indulge. It's another path. Right? They're not indulging in a life of crime. It is taking the path that they see as best for their own success. And again, not just black people, there's a stereotype about Mexicans as well, and Hispanic people, cartels and whatnot. Italians and Italians and Irish and the mafia, and yeah, that happens when you come over here to the land of the free. You come you pull into New York Harbor and see a statue that says, "Send me your weak and needy, your masses yearning to be free," and you're like, yeah, this is the place. And then suddenly you're treated no better than the slaves that were recently freed. Of course, you're going to come together and form crime communities. And that is a result of white supremacy. But it is not a result of whiteness. Again, actually, the Italians and Irish people are an amazing example of it. Because they're white, too. And so are most Jews, actually. It's not... Again, and I say this not because I'm personally offended. I'm not. That tweet didn't rustle my jimmies, but it did make me think, like, I guess it wasn't a tweet. It's on Threads. Oh, look at that episode of Redhand Rambles. There we go. It's that. Again, we don't want to. We cannot afford to. It's not discrimination. It's not reverse discrimination, but it's a to use identifiers that alienate our own people, because again, it's again, I'm just kind of nitpicky, and there is nuance. Facts can be weaponized, truth cannot, and nuance is the bridge we need to make between the two to prevent those facts from being weaponized. It's the anchor that ties the facts to the ground. Yeah, I'm someone who's very progressive. Like you look at my bio, it's capitalism and patriotism. No, capitalism and patriarchy are two cheeks of the same ass, right? And that is something, if we had three ass cheeks, I'd probably stick religion in there too. But yeah, that's phrases that originate from the fight against white supremacy, such as, if you can convince the lowest white man that he is better than the greatest black man, you can convince anyone to do anything, or whatever the rest of the phrase was. Again, if it was like, I don't know, let's say Indonesians who ruled the world right now, and spent the past 500 years fucking it up, and the next most populous group or most widespread group were, say, I don't know, Russians, and they were the oppressed people. The phrase would, if you could convince the lowest Philippine that he's greater than the greatest Russian. That's what the phrase would be. The power structures aren't inherent. They are, again, the white, again, my whiteness isn't the problem. That is the argument of the enemy. If they're like, oh, whiteness is part of the problem. No, to them, whiteness is the solution. We need to divest ourselves of their arguments, because, again, it's the tool of the enemy. Yeah.